Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris and Beverley Ann.
Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward. I'm Beverley Ann and I'm joined by the wonderful...
Hi everyone, it's Chris here.
And today's episode is Have You Got 5 Minutes? So it's our monthly Q&A, which is actually March 2024. But we're doing things a little bit different because we like to do that. And this month, on Friday, the 8th of March, it's Women's International Day. And although you may not be listening to this podcast on that day, we just thought it'd be really lovely to go back and just pick out something memorable to each of us about each of the women that have appeared on our podcast as guests so far.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting going through the list, wasn't it, Chris?
It was indeed, yeah, it was. But every time I go down the list of women that we've already had on our podcast, there is something memorable about each and every single one of them. So it'd be really good to discuss them for International Women's Day.
Absolutely. And I don't mind sharing. Each and every one of them, on different reasons, touch something, and it's quite emotive, and that's exactly what we want, you know, people to be able to connect, and they're everyday women in their everyday lives doing some fantastic things, aren't they?
They are, and there are many more women that we want to interview and have on the podcast, and who we both know in just our everyday lives that obviously are not on this list, but that doesn't mean to say we don't want to celebrate them for International Women's Day. And we'll discuss a few of those people later on in the podcast.
Absolutely. So you and I haven't discussed this. We've obviously got the list in front of us. So I'm going to start with you. And the very first person, or woman, not the first guest that we had, but the very first person, and we're celebrating Women's International Day, was Rachel W.
Yes. Yeah. So what was it about Rachel that resonated with me? So remember, we were away for a weekend, wasn't we, in Brighton? Yes. We were there for a day trip, and we just decided that we would meet up with Rachel there. And we got to meet her dog and her partner, and we just straight away, didn't we, got into a deep, meaningful conversation on the seafront there. And I think we got really cold because we were just kept speaking and speaking and speaking. So just really easy to get on with. A fantastic backstory, as in sad and wrong that abuse was done to her, but the way that she had come through it and is now shining so brightly in what she's doing, it really warms the cockles of your heart, so to speak. Let's go back to the sea. What are they called?
Theme.
Yeah, sea theme. Yeah, that's what I remember about Rachel. What about yourself?
Well, everything that you've said. And also, if you remember, I went swimming in the sea afterwards because I was doing the challenge. It was in March.
Yes, very nutty woman is our Bev.
A dip a day for refuge.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was like we'd always known her.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
She was there with a partner and fabulous dog, which she uses in her therapy. And we just literally had this cup of coffee and that was it. We were just in there. For me, because she's a care leaver as well, so there's another level there.
Yeah.
And just listening to, you know, her story and how she uses a dog, but in a different way. It's not just about the petting, about how she connects with young people and just being her unique self. And I think
100%.
that's the bit. That's the key, isn't it? So and I love watching her journey, you know. And it's like anything, you know, on social media. I don't go on social media all the time and I don't always comment, but I do always watch, even if I just acknowledge quickly. And it's love seeing her fly and
and the growth.
And it'd be good to have her back again to see, like,
to get an update.
How, you know, what's happened in the last year, because can you believe that's It's about a year ago that she was on here in the April.
100%. Yeah. So we are proud of you, Rachel, and we will tag you into this video along with everybody else. And we just want to say you've always got our backing and our support in all that you do, and we want to see you go from strength to strength.
Absolutely. Next person, Sarah Champion.
Yes, MP.
MP.
So we come across Sarah, didn't we, for the podcast, or we invited Sarah onto the podcast to talk about her life as an MP, how she got into it, what it meant to her, and to speak about Della's Law, which is about preventing convicted sexual offenders from changing their name so that they can go on to re-offend without impunity. So that's the main reason we had Sarah on, to discuss all of that and how we as individuals, victim, survivors and allies, how we could all get behind Sarah and specifically Della Wright, the survivor, how we get behind them and help them with their campaigning and to get that law changed. So that's obviously what I remember about Sarah, and I have ongoing dialogue with Sarah. What do you remember about Sarah?
One of the things that fascinated me, because obviously we see people in a political stance and we make assumptions, let's be honest, and to hear her story about how she became a local MP within 2 weeks. 2 weeks before that, she'd never considered it until another woman actually said to her, why don't you step forward in the by-election? And since she's done that, her life and her world has changed. And, you know, she really does champion for sexual violence and she wants the best. And most people won't recognise her name because she's the MP of Rotherham, but that doesn't stop her wanting to represent women all over the UK, even though she lives in that area. So it was just her passion and just thinking, wow, you know, one day you were doing this and then 2 weeks later you went into a role that you had absolutely no idea what entailed, but you just followed your passion and you went with it.
Yeah. And she had a campaign, didn't she? So if you go onto Sarah's Twitter account, Dare to Care, and I don't remember the ins and outs because we're just doing a quick synopsis of what we remember about each podcast guest. But if you want to find out more information about that, you can go on to Sarah's Twitter handle and find out more information about Dare to Care.
Yes, and what we'll do below this video, and also if you're listening in the audio, we will put the links to each person that has a campaign like that, because we wouldn't want anyone to be missed out.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to speak about Della later on in the list, so we won't talk about too much more now, but it is still ongoing, that law change, and I think we just need to keep the pressure up and on to government to make sure that it doesn't slide down or gets weakened. Absolutely.
So the next one on the list.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce her?
So Claire Waxman, OBE, is the London Victims Commissioner, and I come across Claire many, many years ago when she was doing a lot of work into the pathway through the criminal justice system, and I was invited by Claire to attend the Victims Summit to share my experiences of the criminal justice system to a particular point, because I think what Claire was trying to do, I can hear someone in the background, and has done something successfully. Can you hear that voice in the background?
I think that's my husband in the room next door.
It's International Women's Day, do you not mind? Anyway, to carry on. So what Claire's done through the Victims Summit is looked at the journey from reporting to court and looked at each part of the criminal justice system and used a victim and survivors and individuals' experience to prove where the system was not working in order to provide evidence of it not working, and then said what needs to change to make it happen. So the whole system is less re-triggering, less re-traumatizing, and least harmful to the individual that's transversing it, going through it. So I have huge respect for Claire. She is a victim of stalking herself, and she has gone through the whole criminal justice system herself. She knows what works, what doesn't work, and what needs to change. And yeah, I've got a lot of time for Claire. So what is it that you remember about Claire?
Well, I remember the very first time I met Claire as well, because it was when we were doing the Light Up London.
Yes,
you know,
Light Up the Night.
Light Up the Night. So that was my very first time I met Claire. But in all fairness, I didn't really understand her role. So when anybody comes on, you get to hear the other side. And she was into wellness before she got stalked.
100%, yes.
And again, you know, here's another woman who's an everyday woman, you know, following her pathway as she thought. And suddenly, because of abuse, she was stalked, as you mentioned. She went through the criminal justice, but then life changed around for her, and she's now the London Commissioner.
Victims Commissioner,
the Victims Commissioner. And I just listened to that and her passion and her role, and I really am in awe, because it's like, it just shows you, we see these, you know, people on TV and we just think, oh wow, how did you get, I'm always interested in a backstory. So to hear that, again, that wasn't something she thought, oh, when she left school, oh, that's what I want to do.
No.
She followed her pathway. So fantastic woman.
So moving on. So guest number 4 for us in our women's league table, in no particular order, but this is just the order that they come on to our podcast, was Pauline Sharp. Do you want to say something about Pauline before I do?
Wow. Where do we start with Pauline? So Pauline I met. So like you, I knew about Pauline through social media, just little bits and pieces. But the first time I actually met Pauline was when she came onto your radio station that you used to do. Do you remember?
Yes,
And again, I've met her at all the Light Up London, etc. over the years. Oh my God, what a woman. I mean, she is a survivor of ritual abuse, as she shares, and her story about where she's been, and she only shares the overriding headline. Coming on to here, she now hosts a monthly support group, peer-to-peer support group in Havant near Portsmouth for other women, and she's going on in her own journey to further that. And she does it very quietly as well. She's not a woman
that shouts out about it, does she?
No,
unlike me.
No, but she's going about doing the things that she's been dreaming of, and things that are really passionate to her, and she's just going on and on in strength. You know, some of the amazing things like she's done. Like, do you remember when she walked the China Wall, the Wall of China?
Wall of China,
Wall of China. And what's even more amazing there is she has bad knees and she's waiting for an operation now. But she was like, I am going to do this. And she's got a real passion for photography. So I love some of the things that she does as presents, and she sends them, you know, like calendars and books and things like that. And she made a fantastic book for me once, and it's in my toolbox, my wellness toolbox. So Pauline, we love you, and we love everybody else, but you know, we know you as a friend, a colleague, and a professional.
So Pauline, for me, met on social media. Then she attended my 8-week course that I run through survivors of abuse. So she benefited from that. And then, as you've mentioned, she then went on to raise £5,000 for the charity so that we could run another course for another 10 survivors, so it's free of charge to the survivor. So, and now she helps me with some of the admin for the charity, which is fantastic. And those little gifts that you mentioned, this is one of them that she made me.
Oh, lovely.
So it's obviously the logo, the charity logo, but she's made it out of buttons. So that just sits in front here to remind me. I'm sure there's other stuff of Pauline's around. Yeah, can you see that up there? It's what she bought me for Christmas. So Pauline is a gift giver to people, but her, as you said, her photography is amazing, and really just brings us a lot of joy. Yeah. So another wonderful person. So as I said, we're not short of wonderful people here. We can sing everybody's praises, which we are doing. So number 5 on our list, Dr. Ellie Hansen.
Well, do you want to go first this time?
I will go first. So again, what can we say about Ellie? Very quiet, very undersells herself, like a lot of our guests, but is absolutely highly intelligent, very aware of what's going on, and articulates things so simply and eloquently that she makes complex topics or situations very easy to understand. And as I said, very understated. And we've had her obviously on a couple of our podcasts now, talking about sibling sexual abuse, talking about the role of pornography, and I'm talking about adult pornography here, the role of adult pornography in children and young people's development, and how that's turning our society into a more potentially violent one against women and girls and children, both girl and boys. So she's turned out to be our expert really on our show. We've got many experts, but she's handsomely given her time many times and will continue to do so. So that's my sum up of Dr. Ellie Hansen. What about yourself?
Well, the thing is about Ellie is I met her in person after knowing of her on social media for many years, and meeting her in person, she radiates, as does everyone else, but because she's so quiet. And as you said, the way she's able to articulate really challenging conversations, and she finds the words, I admire her so much for what she does and what she's constantly doing, because she works on behalf of many organizations and she does a lot of research. So it's a lot of work in the background and behind the scenes. No, she's an amazing woman. So who's the next one?
Emily Victoria and her mum Kath. It is Kath, isn't it? Yeah. So you're the one that connected, I believe, with Emily Victoria first?
No, that was you. We got invited to the Channel 4 programme.
Okay, so I got an invite to Channel 4 for their premiere of this programme, and it's a survivor story. That's all I knew. And then once I delved into it a little bit more, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, we'll go along, we'll support, because that's what we do. We support other victims and survivors, especially in what they're doing. So Emily Victoria's film documentary is called A Paedophile in the Family, Surviving Dads. And we both have a connection there purely because our dads were both sexual offenders as well. So there's straight away, there's some connectivity, isn't there, between us two and Emily Victoria. And at the film, I did notice that you really got on well with Emily and her mum. So Bev, how did you find Emily Victoria and Kath? What is the most memorable thing that you took on board from meeting them?
Well, obviously, I didn't really know all the details about where we were going, and we were invited through. You got the invitation to go to the private viewing at Channel 4. So there was about 50 people in total, including them. So Emily was on the stage with her mum, but there are other people like the CEO of the NSPCC,
Yeah.
Jess Phillips.
Yes,
who is memorable as well, and a small audience. And I literally was sitting in front of them, like we both were, about three rows back, weren't we? And for me, it was that we talk about sharing our story, but it wasn't just her story. We'd gone into her whole life, but it was the relationship between her and her mum,
yeah,
and how honest they were. And I
yeah,
think it was another level for me, you know. And I'll be honest, I think some of that as well is like, oh, wow, I would have loved to have had my mum behind me.
yeah,
So that there's that young self, and my mum wasn't. So to see that happening between Emily and her mum, and I just automatically got that it wasn't an easy relationship. They hadn't done it
no,
easily. There was a lot that they'd had to work through, but they were honest about that. And individually, Emily and Kath, they independently had to work through an awful lot to be able
on
to
their own.
also,
Yeah,
on their own, to come together to support each other.
yeah,
And there were so many facets to that. It blew me away, but also how they presented themselves and how they were sharing. It was like, wow, I feel really privileged to be sitting here listening to you. And I recommend anyone listening to watch the documentary, which is
yeah,
Paedophile in My Family, My
yeah,
Dad. I've recommended it to many people. And I think it's a really good tool for raising awareness for exactly what goes on. And the
yeah,
fact that she'd been through the justice system and she was trying to use the restorative justice, and for her that wasn't an option. And we'll talk about that more with another guest,
yeah, exactly.
because
Yeah,
there's always different sides. It's no one solution is right for everyone. So
no,
yeah, that's and I've had the privilege to also meet up with them as well afterwards, like before they came on the podcast and afterwards, because of my location where I am. And yeah, so again, they've got many things going on. And
yeah,
again, it's this time next year, where will they be? So yeah, I
yeah,
think they're taking a bit of time out for themselves at the moment. We send them lots of love.
yeah, we do. But it's like every single one of our guests that we have had on, we knew before they came on, that's how they trusted us to come on as guests in the first place, because they knew us. But we always follow their journey, and we follow them and we support them in everything that they do. So it's not just you come on as a guest and we forget all about you. Thank you. It's not like that. It's more like we're trying to have built relationships, continue to build a relationship, and carry that relationship on. And I think that's really important to us.
Absolutely. And I think that's the important foundations to enable our conversations to flow,
Mhm.
because we don't like editing. We like to say it's uncut and authentic.
Yeah,
Occasionally we have to cut something out, especially if I've made a mistake, which often it has been my reason. However, it is raw, it's uncut, and that message can't run through unless people trust us,
yeah,
and able, and are confident that we're providing a platform that is trustworthy.
yeah. And there has been on occasion where we've pulled some podcasts, isn't there? Because the guest has not been happy with their own contribution. They felt that they may have overshared, they felt the time wasn't right. Whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. We will pull it if they're not happy. And I
Uh,
think that
what
builds the trust.
100%, because the thing that's most important is if somebody's unsure, then we respect that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And that's a big issue,
So our next guest, Fatima Whitbread. Come on, you go first.
Wow, look at the face. Look at the face. First of all, iconic growing up. Absolutely iconic. And when I was growing up, I didn't actually know that she was in care because we never spoke about things like that.
No.
Let alone abuse. We didn't share about being in care, being a care leaver, and then talking about abuse. And obviously over the years, things have come out. And when we asked her to come on the podcast, and she said yes, I was like, really? Oh my God, how down to earth was she, and how amazing. And getting to meet her mother, Maggie, as well, virtually.
That was a bonus.
Yeah. And for anyone who hasn't heard, please go and listen to the podcast.
All of them.
But what Fatima also shared with us at the end was that she was going to win that award, and we were sworn to secrecy.
Yeah.
And that was really hard, And I watched it and it really brought tears to my eyes. But she's inspired me loads. She's an ambassador for Action for Children, and that inspired me. And I took part in Fatima's 29-mile February challenge. So you had to, I interpreted it as doing a minimum of a mile a day, which I did do, and also share that I won a prize. I didn't expect to, and it was not because I know Fatima. It was nothing to do with that. It was all to do with Action for Children, and you could win different things. And I actually won a water bottle that's hand signed by Fatima.
Oh, really?
But I'm not going to use it. Although I might use it for when I do.
You should put it up behind you.
Yeah, I should do. But I might use it for the marathon, although I don't want to lose it. But I think putting it up behind me would be good.
Yeah,
so she inspired me there. And what's important about Fatima's campaign, and something that really touched me, is Fatima's campaign is all about changing the narrative of being a care leaver. So rather than leaving care and, the expectations being minimal. I remember being 16 and, the outcome for me really wasn't very positive at all if I listened to everybody's messages. And like Fatima, it was like, no, I'm not going to go down that same avenue. And she now campaigns and is bringing together all different groups of people that do amazing work, but to open opportunities for young people, that are looked after. So they may be in residential care, they may be fostered, or they may be vulnerable and they need some extra opportunity and support. So that's like John Lewis. You don't just get a job and that's it. John Lewis put a lot of extra attention into supporting those young people. And we've had people behind us in different ways growing up, but how much more fantastic would that be to have mentors?
100%.
And opening up to sport. I mean, talking about sport.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if you'd had that opportunity? Because that's really up your street,
up my alley. Yeah. So as a kid, I used to run to deal with anger and pent up energy, which I didn't know was anger, and I didn't know why I had it. I just ran, and then I got into athletics because I like running. And then I started watching athletics on telly, and then Fatima was actually the javelin thrower. And I thought, oh, I don't need to run and hurt myself. I can throw a stick, a spear. I didn't know what it was. It was just this long thing. I'd have a go at that. So I literally picked it up, went 1, 2, 3, throw, and it ended up going like up and straight back down, digging into the earth. I thought, oh, there's a lot more to this than just running and trying to throw it. So that was my experience of javelin, and I soon gave it up and took up discus instead because it was easier for me to do. But yeah, she was one of my inspirations when I was a kid, just because I was into athletics and I was trying to find different ways of just dealing with, as I said, that pent up energy that I had no name for and didn't understand why I had it. I just knew that when I exerted my energy by throwing or running, I felt better. I could deal with things better. So, yeah. So when she said she was going to come onto our podcast, I was like you, what just happened there? As you said, very down to earth. And then she got that prize, didn't she? And she promised you or us at the end of that podcast that we could do an interview with her, didn't she? A couple of days after she'd won it. And she stuck to her word and she did that. And that
And
was
she did it the next day.
Yeah.
She did it the next day, which was amazing.
So that's another podcast that we have with Fatima, isn't it?
Yeah. And one thing I will say, I continue to watch her because she's going to do a climb. She's raising money.
Yes.
And she's going to climb Mount Everest, I think it is. So she's training hard, and that's given me the inspiration for when I do the marathon. Not that I'll be running. I just want to add that. Mine's not about a fast time. Mine's about completing it. So, yeah, complete inspiration. And thank you, Fatima, along with everybody else.
Yes, so far. Next.
So, Della, right. Oh my God. Go on then, Chris.
So, Miss Della, again, so underrated, like, as in, doesn't blow her own trumpet, under the radar, but a powerhouse. Yeah, she might have not started off like that, but she's become one. And Della, again, we met online, followed her story, understood her story. I've done a lot of helping her raise awareness around the campaign of changing the names, getting it stopped. And we even attended a speakers course together, shared a hotel room together, got to know her, went and supported her when she launched her book. So as I said, there's a lot of crossovers with all of our guests. We've been involved with their work, we've supported them, we've been part of their journey, they've been part of our journey. And that is what is really magical about this podcast, is the journey that we've all been on together in different ways. And I just have got nothing but utmost respect for Della and what she's achieved and what she's going to carry on achieving. Away from the podcast and the limelight of what else is going on, we are friends like me and you behind the background, and we've shared a lot of stuff that I'm not going to share here, but we've helped each other on a level where those acts of kindness that have gone between me and her, and vice versa, like me and you, it's more like a sisterhood. Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I've got to say about Della. I just think she's bloody marvellous.
Well, I've got to say, I only knew of Della from her online presence.
Yeah.
So to actually meet her, on the podcast and hear, she's actually a really, really quiet person.
Very.
But the power of what she's producing is just amazing.
Yeah.
And she's someone that doesn't really want to be in the limelight.
I think she'd rather not be.
Yeah, she'd rather be behind the scene, but she also recognises, the importance of her message and what she brings to that importance, and the reason why
100%.
why it's called Della's Law.
Yeah.
So, and nobody knows everything, but even in her podcast, I was learning so much, even on the day, things that you take for granted. And these are some facts that I share with people, just to open a conversation sometimes. And they're like, no way, you can't change your name that easily. I was like, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And people do.
Yeah. Especially sexual offenders
that
have been caught and want to go on reoffending, want to create a whole new persona so that they can leave their little grubby crimes behind them. They can change their name and go on and create another lot of criminal acts against children and young people.
Yeah.
And Della's saying,
No.
And we obviously all back that 100%.
100%. Yes. So, yeah, blown away, you know, a real little pocket rocket.
Yeah. And again, Della and I attended that speaker's course. Richard McCann, he's a motivational speaker. He does talks, presentations to different organizations every single day of his life, because that's his career now. But everyone will know Richard McCann. Mum was the first victim of the Yorkshire Ripper.
Oh, okay.
Richard McCann's got his own story, and there is controversy about saying Yorkshire Ripper, so I do apologise, Richard, but that's what everybody knows that person as. But let's not name him. Let's say Wilma McCann, which is Richard's mum, lost her life as the first victim. So obviously that was when Richard was a small boy, and you can find out all about Richard's story just by going out and Googling him and following him. But Della and I attended his speaker's motivational course to get more experience in doing media work, because we've both, obviously, like yourself, we've all got something we want to share with the world. And in order to be convincing and have a persona about you, you need to know how to speak to people, whoever the audience is, and to deliver facts and be confident in doing that. So that's why Della and I went to Richard, because he's an expert in his field. So why wouldn't you? Yeah. So see how, even though we're speaking about certain people in certain roles, there's other people that cross over into all of this.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like anything. No one person gets to anywhere without the support of other people. And I'm just going to acknowledge here someone not on our list, Ali Harold, because she was my coach.
Right.
And I started off doing one workshop and doing this and then doing, you know, a 3-month sort of workshop training.
Yep.
And they help you to find your voice, to construct what you're going to share in a way. So a big thank you, Ali. Shout out to you, because you're an amazing voice coach. And I remember when she was encouraging us to do selfie, like videos. I was like, I can't talk now. You can't stop me.
Now look
talking.
at you. Can't stop you.
Right. Let's. And next. Right. So we had the lovely Dr. Ellie Hansen came back, and she spoke about sibling abuse.
Yeah.
And that was a really challenging episode to do, because in all fairness, there was a lot of facts that I wasn't personally aware of.
Yeah.
Dr. Ellie Hansen is currently putting together a lot of research in this. And independently, we also invited Kath on. You knew Kath to invite her, didn't you?
Yeah.
How did you know Kath?
Again, Kath did a documentary, or there was a program, a documentary program, whatever you want to call it, about the abuse that she suffered as a result of her brother, and how her mum and dad were completely in the dark about the abuse that was going on literally right under their noses in the house. And Kath was sharing the fact that she wasn't able to get justice through the criminal justice system, but she went through a process called restorative justice. And I've looked up for the program about restorative justice and Kath's case that was shared on the program, but it's no longer available. But Kath shares quite candidly, doesn't she, in our podcast, what it was that she went through and how it made her feel, and you know, the benefits of maybe having restorative justice. So before I would have said RJ, restorative justice, nah, no thanks. I want to go through the criminal justice process. I want to see them in court. But we all know that many cases get no further actions. Many cases may get to court, but they don't have a conviction at the end. So again, no further action, even if it gets to court. So restorative justice to some people is a process of justice where they can sit in front of the persons that's caused them harm, and they can ask questions. And Kath described the process to us in detail, so I don't want to reinvent the wheel. You need to go and listen to that podcast. But just listening to her, Bev, on the day, because she was talking out in the open, wasn't she? The girl, the woman that she is, just such strength, determination, and character, strength of character that just shines through all of these women. It's just blooming amazing.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you talk about restorative justice, I can actually understand myself, because as much as one way we want to go to court, we see so many people or cases that don't get any further.
Yeah.
And people take that then that, oh, you were lying, and
Yeah.
they're not guilty, they're innocent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
so
that's not the case, is it?
No. So for restorative justice, if I'd had the opportunity, I think I'd want that as well. Because the person, if they agree to it, and there's the if
Yeah.
they agree to it. So basically, they're acknowledging what they've done.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily get convicted, even if they've acknowledged it. And people
No.
misunderstand that hugely. So absolutely, I remember sitting there and just listening, like glued, just listening.
So captivating.
Absolutely. And then the other part of that was we had a statement that I personally read out, and this is somebody that I know and I've known for quite a long time, and I obviously didn't know. She was or is a victim survivor of sibling abuse. And I read her story out, and that was obviously very poignant to do that. But what blew me away for both of the people, so Kath and the person I was speaking on behalf of, was how, and this was just by, they weren't selected for this, but how they highlighted the facts about what Dr. Ellie Hansen was sharing with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
So that I remember after that podcast, always like to go for a walk. Even today, I'll be taking the dogs for a walk. But after that, I really needed to step away and take some time to process it. Yeah. Because we're always talking about the adults around children, and we never consider, you know, I've never considered, you know, about peer. Yeah, we've spoken about it, but you start to think as yourself as a parent, and how must it be in that position? It's just.
Yeah, you've potentially, haven't you? You've potentially got one child that's the perpetrator or the harmer, because they don't like to call children and young people perpetrators. They call them harmers. And then you've got the victim, which is potentially, you know, another child. So how do you, as a parent, deal with that situation? I wouldn't want to.
No. And that is something we will be coming back to. And I will say, we got contacted by a few people straight away.
Yeah.
So again, we will be putting the links again under this. So if you do go and listen to that podcast, you know, please listen to it, because it raises awareness, but there is support that we've put underneath for it as well, that you can go to. So, and it's so important, you know, abuse just doesn't happen here or here. It comes in different forms.
Yeah.
So
number 10, the last lady we have on our list.
Last but certainly not least.
Oh my goodness, no, not least. Yehudis G. Goldsable. As I said, always get her surname wrong, but I hope I've just done myself right and pronounced it correctly. This lady is a powerhouse. She founded her own charity that she no longer runs, because she's becoming, or I think she's just qualified actually She's just got her degree. I wouldn't like to say what it's in because I wouldn't want to get it wrong. But if you follow Yehudis, you'll soon find out. But she is the founder of Sexual Abuse and Sexual Violence Awareness Week. She and I somehow found ourselves speaking to each other back in 2015, and she wanted to shout out about different organisations that were providing services to victims and survivors about their work, and she wanted to do it under a collective hashtag in a specific week in the year which wasn't inundated with other things going on. So it's the second week of February every single year. Founded it in 2016. I was part of the steering group. We launched it in City Hall in 2016, and we've now just had our 8th year doing this. And Yehudis, even though she founded the week, she's always said the week is not about her. It's not about any particular person or organisation. The SASVAW, Sexual Abuse and Sexual Violence Awareness Week, it's not okay, is all about everybody getting involved, whether you are an organisation, a victim survivor, or an ally. Everyone gets involved, speaks about their work, speaks about the impact, share their poetry, share their art, whatever it is you want to do. In that week, we all get together and we all share each other's stuff. So we try and get it to trend, so that we raise the biggest amount of awareness at once. So we always get a smart Alec coming along afterwards and going, well, people are abused every day. Violence happens every day. Yes, we know it does. And our work continues every day. But this was about, for a short period of time, to keep everybody's attention on what we're doing, all of us, this 1 week per year. And since this week, we've had David doing Purple Summer and Purple Winter. I've forgotten his last name for a moment. David Lean, correct. Abuse survivor from Barry Bennell. So he did Purple Summer, Purple Christmas, that we all got behind. And there are other campaigns now, like a lady called Viv has just done Zebra Day, Zebra Dazzle Day, and Emma Jane, EJ Taylor is going to be doing Not My Shame Day on the 1st of May. So there are lots of other victim survivors and allies coming along now, creating their own events that we will all back and all support, off of seeing what's gone before and what's worked and what has not worked. So I just think this lady Yehudis is just like all our other guests, blooming amazing. I was going to swear then, but I try not to swear. Flipping amazing, a star amongst stars. Yeah. I've got nothing but good to say about all of these people. Yeah. What about you? What do you want to say about Yehudis?
Well, Yehudis, and I'm going to tell you what she is. She's a policy officer at the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime, MOPAC, MOPAC.
Yeah, but so, she's just done her degree, and I know she's just qualified.
Yeah, University of London. So the first time I met her was, again, Light Up London.
Light Up the Night. Not
Light Up the Night.
London.
I know, but Light Up the Night, because it's all different cities.
I quite Light Up London, but it was all different cities, yeah.
Yeah. And again, you know, when we meet, we're all in our bobble hats. We're all wrapped up because it's in February, and we all say, and everyone's on the same level, whether they're survivors, whether they're supporters, you know. And then again, when you hear, oh, wow, what she has and what she still continues to work with, because she talks about the abuse, but she also talks very openly about how much it's impacted with her faith, which and so it brings another level into it, because her faith is still very important to her. So it's, you know, facing the, you know, there are consequences that she faces, there's backlash, you know, but she's also very passionate about her faith too. So she's not sharing to deny her faith, she's sharing because she is passionate about her faith. She is passionate about raising awareness of abuse and keeping children and vulnerable people safe, and how she manages that on different levels. It's just amazing. Do you see what I mean? You know, she's got a family herself, and wow. I mean, I couldn't say, you know, and wouldn't want to, who is most memorable, because no one of our guests is more memorable. And today we're speaking about our women. That's not to say we won't honour our men as well. But we're doing this for International Women's World Day. And what I think is amazing is, independently, each of these women brings so much strength, and yet also together, you know, the support, by supporting each other and enabling each other to have their everything, to raise awareness, etc. And even if I don't share things unnecessarily on social media, because I don't always go on it, I'm always talking about them in the background. Have you heard? And I'm always signposting people. You know, and Yehudis is another one. You know, she's a great role model, and I would really like to see more women and men coming forward that are wanting to open up about abuse, but within different faiths and different cultures, because I think it's very, very important.
100%. So I've got a question for you now that we've spoken about our podcast guests. Who would you like to see come on, and why?
Well, what always inspires me is everyday women with everyday stories to share, because that's something that, you know, that's how we connect. And one of the things, you know, we're very much about ICSA, you know, we're not here to decide whether it's good or whether it's bad, but there's been a big inquiry there, and we don't want it to go quiet, and we don't want it to fall away. I'd really like to hear or have Theresa May on here and Alexis J. I really would. Independently, give them time, you know, because, you know, without Theresa May, it wouldn't have got started.
No.
And without Alexis J picking up the baton, as they say, to continue to chair it, from early stages right through to now, and to continue, you know, to hear their story, for me, that would be fantastic, because it would give everybody some more backstory to it. What about yourself, Chris?
So I would like those two people on, but also I would love Jess Phillips to come on, and that is going to happen. We're just trying to pinpoint a date between us. And there are a raft of other ladies that I would love to have on. Whether they would come on, I don't know. But I would like to just do a shout out to a few people myself now, just mentioning their names. See if you know. Vanessa Bob, Malika, Diane Ginn, my sister, Faye Maxted, Lucy Duckworth, May Baxter Thornton, Emma Lou, Sheila Coates. They're all people that I've worked with at the inquiry. Dr. Teresa Redmond, that I currently work with now. Yeah, that's on my list, and I'm sure I've missed people, but we're you know, mention them next year potentially. But all of these people are part of my inner circle, and I appreciate them for the work they've done in the past, currently, and in the future. And last but not least, yourself.
You were on my list to do that.
We are salt and pepper.
We are.
Go together.
Well, let me get it in first, because you've been speaking, so I'm interrupting. I'm taking the baton first. But what people don't know is how, like Chris and I knew about each other through social media, and we lived in similar areas. We actually grew up, anyone listening to us for the first time, we actually grew up in very similar areas.
In the
And we
same
talk about,
borough.
yeah, talk about sliding doors.
Yeah.
And that again happened when in 2017 you launched your charity.
16, yeah.
2016 in the December, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
April, I got charity status.
yes. And that's when I was.
You come to the launch. That is.
No,
yes.
I wanted to, but I couldn't come on the actual night.
But it was in the autumn, is what I'm saying. That's where we're
Yes.
getting confused. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I knew about you, heard about you, and then you invited me to come onto your radio station, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And when I got into there, you had so much technology around you, and you were like, oh yeah, just do this, just do that. And we didn't stop talking.
Yeah,
And we had to be
didn't.
really aware that we were doing it was going out on Facebook Live as well.
Live, yeah.
So we had to be really, but then everything unfolds. And even now, oh my God, what you don't do, and your passion. And I've said this, and I'm going to say it on the air. We need a children's commissioner, and I really reckon you'd be the best one, Chris. Oh. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you're not afraid to say what you're thinking. So you will challenge people. If you don't like something, you will challenge it. You don't say things just because it sounds right. You're like, no, I don't. And we may all have our own opinions, and we may say things, but you make it so definite. No. And you champion so harshly for people's rights. And you do that as a mum. You know, you've got 2 children yourself that you look after and support. You know, you've got a husband who's now finishing his career, but you just never ending. And you champion, and what you've done for your family as well, you know, like Diane. And I am getting emotional now because seeing your sister come on like she is, I mean, oh, Diane, you know, amazing. And there's lots of fabulous men, but I'm going to, you know, some of the women around us, you know, Diane, Pauline, we all see each other at these different things. And when we give each other a hug, it's fantastic. Being on the train going up to Manchester that time. So, you know what, Chris? I can't wait till one day you are using your voice in Parliament, because I really think it's needed. You would be refreshing for that, because you don't just play by the book. You don't play by the rules. Yeah, you know, you watch what you say, but you won't be silenced at all.
It's nice to hear you say that, but at the moment I'm feeling very, very silenced. I think when you do put your head above the parapet and you have something to say, and you've got it backed up by evidence, and you've got it backed up by it's morally right and ethically right, those people in power don't want to hear that. So the doors do get shut in your face, and that is where the silence happens all over again. And that does not make me happy at all.
Absolutely. And it's something that angers me, hugely angers me.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need to get that out. And, you know, unless things can't change unless we're ready to hear those challenging things. You know, we can't just sit there being puppets, saying the things that people want us to say, or have, you know, traditionally, this is how they do it. No.
No.
We don't want that. And you do have the tenacity, but it's hard. And that's what I admire about you, because you do look after yourself as well.
You might have seen, if you're watching, I've been sniffing this essential oil because my back is playing up at the moment from lots of tension that survivors suffer from. And this is just calming me down. So even whilst we speak today about something wonderful, International Women's Day, celebrating the women that we've had on our podcast, who would like to see come on, people that I personally work with, I've just spoken their names. Do you have, I know this is probably off the top of your head, but do you have a list of names that you want to just shout out?
I do have a list of names. There's a lot of women, and some of these women aren't necessarily survivors, but they very much support me. And not only that, they very much want to hear about abuse, because they either recommend our podcast, so they signpost people to our podcast, or they want to know so that they have knowledge and they can be aware. And when I think there's lots of different people. So, off the top of my head, the two women that I'm thinking about is, Carol Randall and Alethea. They're both practitioners as well. They support me a lot in what I do, because I have to have support to carry on. Elaine Wilkins from the Chrysalis Effect, she's very passionate about ACEs, and there's something that she wants to speak about and come on here and speak about ACEs and having a conference going forward. There's just so many women. I don't want to leave people out. Zena Rinzi, yes, and bless, she lost her own mother only a few weeks ago, so a big shout out to her. I've got a very special friend at the moment, that I'm not going to say her name, but my heart is with you at the moment, and I've known her since I was 16, so she's what I call my chosen family. So and just to every other woman that, we've all experienced things at different times, and you know what, if you can get the support of other women, it really makes a difference. It really, not just saying it, being able to go around to someone's house for a cup of tea. When I think of some of my friends like Jo, I used to turn up at Jo's house and she'd make, I don't really like milky coffee, but she'd make milky coffee and it just feel warm and nurtured. Do you see what I mean? So loads of different people, and thank you for having the courage to want to hear some of this as well. And I think that's really important, because we can't get things changed unless people are willing to listen. And actually, when they do listen, they realise that we're not sharing every detail. It's not nice, but we're doing this.
Karen, what about Karen that supports our podcast?
Oh, Karen and Mary May.
Yes.
So they're in the background, but not in the background. So Karen, her energy, she very much takes so much on. I mean, I first met her networking years ago, and you already knew her, didn't you? So it's like with many things, once we met someone, you happen to know the other person. She's amazing, and she keeps pushing. Mary May, we have to give her all the information for the podcasts, and she's unfoundering. She just carries on doing it. So, there's
too many people,
so many.
but we've named
never
quite
too many
today.
Never too many. And I just want to say to those women that are listening, if any of you would like to come and share an insight into what you do now, which is important, but how helping other people, or what's worked for you to overcome, we'd be really interested to hear your story, because it makes a difference. Your story will impact somebody, and it enables people to take from the podcast what works for them and what resonates.
As we're speaking, loads of names keep popping into my head, and I'm like, we haven't got time to talk about everybody. But there's Wendy, who lives in Thailand.
Yes.
There's someone
Wendy
else.
Care.
Someone else's name popped in my head. Emma Jane Taylor, as I've already said.
Yes.
Just loads of names keep going in and out. So when we've had you on our podcast, we will name you next year on International Women's Day, because we will get to know you more, and we know your story, we know your work, and we know how we can all support each other going forwards. So I think we need to draw that to a close now, Bev, because otherwise we might be running over time as per usual.
Absolutely. Right. Well, thank you everyone to listening to Have You Got 5 Minutes? If you have a question that you'd like answered, please email StepForward@gmail.com. That will be in the comments underneath this video or audio if you're listening. And so it's a goodbye from me, Beverley Ann, and
a goodbye from me, Chris Tuck. Thank you.
Fantastic. Bye-bye.
Bye.